Okay, guys, so welcome to Wholehuman Radio, the second season. Got some new stuff in store for everyone, which means that I've got on a different kind of interview today with Peter Feliciano, who I stumbled upon, I think accidentally in 2020, maybe 2021, because I woke up, sort of realized I was stuck in this silo or sort of vortex of people that all looked and sounded the same and were repeating the same narrative. And it felt sort of inauthentic. And I wanted to go digging for different conversations and different stories and people who were saying different things that were maybe antithetical or what's the word, politically incorrect or culturally incorrect. And I was sort of curious, intrigued by you and your platform and what you're doing and what you're saying and the conversations that you're having. You're up to a lot. You've got the podcast Conservatish, and then you've got music that you're up to into and putting out there. I'm not really sure what else you've got going on. And there's sort of this mishmash of neat sort of stuff going on. And I kind of just wanted to have a conversation with you and have some fun talk and then some Peter talk. Who is Peter? And also maybe dig into some stuff that people in my space don't really talk about. And we'll get into that in a few minutes after you kind of introduce yourself. But
awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure. I think we're going to break the internet. So first things first, I was born in Long Island, moved out to California when I was 9, and then moved in the Bay Area and then moved back to Manhattan about a year and a half ago. And moved out here for the music and, comedy opportunities and for the podcast and things like that. I've been doing music professionally since 2012, 13-ish. I put out my first album in September of 2019 before I moved out here. And then but a little before that, about a year and a half before that, I had started, how do I get into this? My podcast is called Conservatish.
Which I kind of want to ask you about in a little bit too, but we'll,
Sure. But I'll finish talking about how wonderful I am or whatever. I started it in September of 2018, maybe August, because I was annoyed. I had the same exact feeling that you're having, it seems like. I had been doing music for a long time. I had been just assumed that liberalness was the right way because I think that's normal when you're in your 20s. And I hit a point, I think it was after the 2016 election when I had voted for Bernie and then begrudgingly for Hillary. And then I hit this point where on that night when Trump won, a recently ex-girlfriend called me and she was crying and she was really scared and really just destroyed by it. And I had this point where I was like, even though I didn't vote for the guy and I didn't like him, at the same time, I had this feeling come over me like, I don't think it's that bad. Like, it's probably going to be all right. Like, I mean, it's just a president, like there's a lot of, whatever. It's just, we won't get our way for 4 years is essentially, I mean, that's all I feel kind of what's going on with Biden. I didn't vote for the guy, but, and I certainly don't want him to be president, but at the same time, it's not as much the end of the world every 5 seconds just because the guy I don't like is in that position. Anyway, the person who opened it up for me, because I've always kind of been a bit rebellious and contrarian, and I like anytime a large percentage of people all 100% agrees with something, I'm like, I'd look askance at it. My favorite comedians, my favorite artists, it's always been like Frank Zappa, who shot it everywhere. South Park, everybody got a bullet. It wasn't one message. It wasn't, and I hit a point where I saw Milo Yiannopoulos online, and everybody was like, "He's Satan," blah blah blah. And I was like, "Let me just find out for myself if he's Satan." And so I looked at his videos, and I started realizing, like, I don't disagree with most of what he's saying. You know what I mean? And obviously, he's kind of spun off in his own direction these days. But watching his videos opened me up to the idea of, as far as politics go, how complicated things are, how complicated we are. Mm-hmm. Along with that, I don't know. And so I ultimately I reached a point where I was already starting work on my first album, and I had been annoyed with the messaging that we all have to fall in line. We all have to fall in step, because that's not, like you said, that's not authentic. Regardless of what avenue, regardless of what's bad, I like, I know a lot of bad people. You know what I mean? Like, not bad, but I know a lot of people who have done some horrendous things. I'm one of them, and so the black and white, everybody has to believe with us, everybody has to agree with us. And I just got annoyed with it. And so eventually, after Milo, it led me into Jordan Peterson. It led me into Camille Paglia, who is one of my favorites. If you don't get a chance, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Camille Paglia, please do.
Okay.
And so I decided, I love to rant and I love to joke freely, and I wanted a space to do that. And I also wanted a space to humanize non-liberals, humanize people from all walks of life, but especially non-liberals.
So that's kind of when you started the Instagram page, and how I found that's where I found you primarily, is through your Instagram, not the podcast first. Is that kind of what you're saying? That's when you started sort of speaking out or doing the talking about the stuff that you talk about on your Instagram, basically. And in the podcast.
Yeah. I actually started years ago. Older fans will remember. I started with Controversial Opinion Wednesday, and I started off light. I started off like, Earth, Wind, and Fire is better than the Isley Brothers, things like that. But eventually reached a point where I didn't want it to just be on Wednesdays, and my Instagram has kind of been everywhere. This is what's fucking strange about my experience, and who knows, with transition, it's all organic, but I don't want to be one brand. I don't.
Yeah. And that's a problem that I find that I get stuck. That's where I've found myself, is like, can I speak to this without offending all these people? Or it does become very limiting. And then you feel yourself fighting against yourself, and then doubting yourself and questioning yourself. And I think that's what I admire you about. I'm like, I don't really know exactly what your platform's about, other than you're being you, and which is why I'm drawn to you. And you're, no, I wouldn't say slightly controversial. It depends on what groups you're in, whether or not you're controversial or not. I don't find you controversial, but I know that in the greater scheme of, liberalism, and because the space that I'm in is like spiritual and trauma informed coaching and healers and therapists, you're controversial in that space. There's very few people that I can talk to about what I actually really think. And I don't want to make this necessarily a political conversation. I'd love to go to the cultural stuff that you're speaking to. But it's funny because I don't even know. It's because people still try to define, and maybe you have had this experience too. People want to try and pigeonhole you as, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? I'm like, I'm trans political. I freaking think for myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, and I distrust anyone who is all on board or completely exalts one person, one side all the time, and cannot criticize them as well. And so anyway, that seems like you are who you are. I love that you're putting yourself out there in the way that you're putting yourself out there. You're probably not everyone's flavor of ice cream, which is fine, because when you're trying to be everyone's flavor of ice cream, back to your point, you're not going to, draw in your tribe. But so primarily you're just using your platform then to kind of like speak your mind and what's on your heart, and then kind of get your music out there and your podcast out there. Is there like an end? Is there kind of like a bigger picture for you, Peter? Or are you just sort of walking along doing your thing, and the next thing?
I would say the end goal would probably be to rule the world. I want to be violently famous. That's what I don't believe that. I don't know, because this is maybe another avenue in the spiritual realm. But like, I kind of feel like, let's be honest about what we want, right? Mm-hmm. And I've known a lot of musicians and artists and rappers and whatever over the years who are faux humble, and like, oh no, I just want to be a worker. Like, you know how many people I have met who could do something huge, who are talented, who are even generous and kind, but you're fine with cussing, right?
Yes.
Okay. But do not have the fucking balls to actually do it. They want to stay in San Francisco. And let's be real. If you want to actually do this art thing that I'm doing, you have to be in New York or Los Angeles. They want to stay in San Francisco and just, I'm a journeyman. How long are you going to be a journeyman? You know what I mean? Like, and so I don't want to do that anymore. I realized this is technically probably my only life. And if this is technically my only life, I actually want to enjoy it. I actually want to enjoy it. I want to do what I'm actually supposed to be doing. I want to fulfill what I'm designed to do. Now, that doesn't mean get expectations. That doesn't mean, although I do, that doesn't mean, work on expectations, blah, blah, blah. But a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so ultimately my goal is to just do exactly what I want to do. Put out music, make music. But the thing about the music thing is I didn't want my messages, my art, whatever it is, to be confined to 3 verses and a chorus. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to and it has to rhyme. Like I love music. It's my first love and it always will be my main love. But I like, especially with conversations like ours, long form conversations, you can really get into the meat of it. You can really get more vulnerable. You can really pull apart these things, explore them, understand the nuance, the complication, whatever. So, but to your point earlier, like I'm too conservative for the liberals and I'm too liberal for the conservatives, and I kind of like that about me. I like it.
Yeah. Do you feel like that in any way, shape or form has closed doors for you because you're not fitting into a mold?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I look at the people even who got me into it, for a while there was Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro. I mean, I always was like, all right, I get it, but they're a specific brand, whether you hate them or love them, they're a specific brand and they're not funny. And I wanted to be like, couldn't there be a space where, and I've met a couple of these people along this journey, especially the last year, who, maybe voted Trump, but also think it's okay to talk about eating ass. You know what I mean? Like who voted Trump, but also talk about porn and talk about, and put funny above message. I'm laughing at Trump jokes. There's comedians who I know I disagree with, who I respect first and foremost. Bonnie McFarlane is a perfect example. I will always adore her, regardless of her horrendous political opinions. Love you, Bonnie. But I will always adore her because she's funny. And that's, I think that's the goal, is whatever connects us, and so I try.
Yeah, I think it's a problem in our society where people just automatically, and I'm not saying that I haven't been guilty of this, but they automatically dismiss someone, delete them, block them, unfollow them, whatever, because they decide they're all bad just because they don't agree with everything they say, right? Like and that's how I feel about a lot of the people that I'm plugged into that are more, I don't even know what conservative means anymore. I'm more freedom loving, America first. I'm a critical thinker. I'm very progressive and liberal when it comes to social stuff. But, I'm not going to just completely dismiss, let's say, everything Candace Owens is saying, even though she's a very controversial figure. I don't love the way she delivers some stuff, but she's got a lot of valid points. I don't have to love Candace Owens to say she's speaking some truth. So, and if that gets, me in trouble, I don't fucking care, guys. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that, so people haven't, and that I don't know if that's a function of social media these days. And we get stuck into these silos or these sort of echo chambers. Or honestly, as a coach and a trauma-informed coach, I think it's more of a function of emotional immaturity, our trauma. We need everyone to look, taste, smell like us in order to feel safe. We need to, we're still stuck in tribalism as opposed to authentic individuality and trusting that is okay. Anyway, I could go off on a lot of a soapbox. And I don't want to, but anyway, so yeah, I love that you brought that up. That like, look, we can see people, appreciate them for the art or for whatever it is that they're saying or doing, and also disagree with them, but still say, hey, like I can eat dinner with you. I can have a conversation with you. I can watch your movie. I don't necessarily want, I'm trying to think of some situation where, I'm like, you know what? Like that person just seems super lame. I can't follow you anymore.
Right. Trevor Noah. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to ruin that motherfucker. I swear to God. And I think the main reason is not because he's very popular, because he's not. He's not. Look at the ratings, everybody. Since he took over for Jon Stewart, it's been steadily going down. I don't care if Comedy Central gave him 15 extra minutes to his fucking show or not. He's not popular. And I personally believe, we all know it. We all subconsciously understand. We don't know why. We can't articulate it. And right-leaning people don't articulate it the right way. They say, not a patriot, or he's stupid.
Right.
I want to get down to the root. The root is he puts message above art. The root is it's coming from a place of fear, anger, revenge, whatever, just like you're saying. Mm-hmm. And so I'm on a mission to just tell everybody what they're already feeling.
So you kind of gave us kind of who Peter is. So what and what your sort of mission is, but you talk a lot on your social media about some of this juicy cultural stuff that I really have shied away from, but a lot of it, I think I might have found you around some of the BLM stuff and some of this racism stuff. Everyone's racist. The whole white privilege. To me, there's a lot of white guilt going on. Anyway, so I'd love to dig into some cultural topics with you and maybe take it there with you. Because what's your background, ethnic background? Because you don't consider, where are you? Do we have to have this conversation? Why? See, I even get uncomfortable having this conversation.
No. Yes, we do. Here's why. If you're going to play the identity politics game, liberals, I can fucking beat you. That's why. If someone comes to me with the identity politics game, especially rough and ready, I'm happy to play the game with them. Did you know how many the only people I've really been called Nazi by are white men, and I'm not white. So
white woke women. I heard this on a podcast with Camille Foster. He's a black man, and there was a bunch of it's a great podcast. I haven't listened to it in a while, but he and a bunch of other, it's the intellectual dark web. I'm plugged into a bunch of these really intelligent thought leaders, happen to be black men. And they were like, white woke women are the cancer of society. And I was like, hey, fucking man.
But do you know why?
Do I know why?
Well, let's talk about why. Why do you think it is?
I think if I have to look at some of the white women that I know that I feel like fit that mold, that generalization, I feel like there's some lack of self-understanding. So I feel like there's trauma in the background. I feel like there's some apologetics and guilt. I feel like there is some privilege that they feel guilty about. Mm-hmm. And I also feel like fear of going against the narrative or the norm, like, well, then I'll be a bad human or bad white woman or bad whatever. So it's all those things. If I just had to give you like a quick answer without sitting back and thinking about it and giving you some sort of psychological dissertation right now, in particular, I guess because I didn't grow up, I mean, someone would probably argue with this, but I didn't grow up privileged. I mean, my family was very poor. Most of the schools I went to, white was the minority. I was used to being, so like, I don't have any, like my first boyfriend was black. I've dated black, Hispanic, Persian, all the people. And I actually was taught not to think about color. So only in the past few years have I felt like I had to think about it, right? Like all of a sudden I'm like, shit, am I racist? Fuck. What is my white privilege? Like, do I need it? And then anyway, so I don't know why I just went off on that tangent, but that is why this is an awkward conversation for me, because I've never had to have this fucking conversation before in my whole time, and I'm 42 years old. Right.
Maybe when someone, because it's always going to be a white woman who's, there's a couple of black women who are doing it. They're the one. Which tangent should I go on? That's the fucking question. So
all of them
underneath the white women thing, let's be real. From your experience, because you dig into sex, you dig into masculinity, femininity, all that stuff. We have different strengths, ladies and gentlemen, and we have different strengths. And thank fucking God for women. Thank fucking God for not just the way you smell, but the way that someone needs to fucking kiss the boo-boos, take care of the baby. You're just better at certain things than we are. You're stronger, but not physically muscle, but just as far as pain, as far as like when someone, and Patrice always made that joke, when he's sick, his girlfriend was like doting and like trying to take it, you know, when his girlfriend is sick, he's like, ew, bitch, close the door. You know what I mean? Like we have different strengths. One of the things you're not strong at, ladies, I love you. One of the things you're not strong at is principles and logic. Now, no, I know, because you're all gonna go, but listen, girls, I love you very much. But someone needs to kill the wolf. Someone needs to be the masculine one. Mm-hmm. When emotion, and this is the same thing with children, with dogs, whatever, with my ego, when feeling is running the show, sometimes that's useful, sometimes that's important, sometimes that's powerful. But when feeling is running the show, we can't live. I don't want to go to work, but someone has to, right? If I just went by my feelings, right. You know. And one of the things that I always say is if femininity is losing its fucking mind, it's not girls' problem. It's our problem. It's masculinity. It's a lack of masculinity. It's a lack of boundaries. It's a lack of logic. It's a lack of willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. It's an unwillingness. It's a fear of rejection from a female. So you know what? I'll put my voice, I'll put my power, I'll put it in my pocket and I'll shove it down. I'll shove down my desire to say, shut the fuck up to this woman. I'll just push that down because she might take away the vagina. She might take away her love and approval and attention. So I'm just gonna tamp down my animal. And what happens when that goes down is then the females are like, well, someone needs, we've heard it all the time for the last 25 years plus. Where are all the good guys? Mm-hmm. Where are all the good guys? We got rid of them. We got rid of them because we're scared of you. And you know what? God damn it, I'm annoyed. I'm done being scared of white women. I'm done with, oh, she might not fuck me, bitch. Do you know how many wonderful women I've been with? And this is another thing. I love this. This is a very different episode than you're probably used to, but I love it. Here's the thing. Almost every woman I've ever dated has been liberal. But for some reason, when they're in whether it be a relationship or, you know, labeled or not, when they're with me, for some reason, that override happens where they're like, they can feel my energy. I'm refreshing. They understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not afraid of them. And they like that I'm not afraid of them. Right. And, but they also know that they're safe. But they also know that they're safe. Right. They also know that they're heard. They also know they're taken care of, blah, blah, blah. But when you're afraid, I think all right, let me focus on one thing at a goddamn time. All I'm saying is when I've been saying it recently, let's just ramp up the offensiveness. I think women, for the most part, especially when things are good, for the most part, women have principles based on emotion that they feel right now. A lot of women would say, I would never laugh at a rape joke. If they're in a comedy club, lights are down, they know they're not being watched. Suddenly they're riding the emotion, the energy wave of the room. They're laugh. Suddenly a rape joke comes and they laugh. But if they left the room and someone with a clipboard said, ma'am, would you ever laugh at a rape joke? They would say, no, I would never, right? And that's important. Someone needs to think about the little guy. Someone needs to do that. Someone needs to take care of us. But at the same time, we can't live only by that. I know a lot of really selfish, hurtful Black people, selfish, hurtful white people, selfish, hurtful Latinos, selfish, hurtful gays. You know what I mean? And I think to your point, what happens is when liberals in general, especially Los Angeles and New York, when you don't know enough of a certain type of person, they become dehumanized. And just because we put them on a pedestal doesn't mean they're not dehumanized. You know what I mean? I'm 19 years sober, and my experiences, I've been volunteering at prison since 2011. I know Black people who have murdered people. I know illegals who have murdered people. Now, they've changed their life around, but to say black skin equals good, or let me write off this Black person's behavior because the white man did it to them. Fuck you. That's dehumanizing. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no. So I think what you're saying is that the lack of and I totally agree with you. There tends to be, and that's just to me in all the liberal space, is like a lack of use, like like I love the whole saying, my facts don't care about your feelings. And I'm a very feminine, emotional, nurturing, empathetic being. I've had to learn how to use it appropriately in this lifetime, but I'm also, the way my brain is wired, very, very logical, like drove my mother crazy growing up, and explained to her why the Easter Bunny wasn't real when I was 4 years old, because there was no, anyway, so logic. So I've always been able to kind of bring logic into the emotional stuff, and which I think is great. I think there should be a balance, and I think we do need to kind of check, like, where is this stuff coming from? But at the end of the day, to be honest with you, Peter, a lot of liberals think they have the facts, and they think they're being logical, and they think they're being rational. I don't know, why but anyway, so yeah, so that's the white woke woman, why they're cancerous. But you said something about the white men, because we had asked you what we were talking about, identity politics, and what's your ethnic background. We never even got to that.
Oh, right. So I'm 50% Puerto Rican, which I know you've never met any before. No, I'm just kidding. Because they're only from New York. And then 4-ish% Black, and then the rest German and English.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
On my other person on my mom's side. So maybe it's partially that I don't like the identity politics. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the fact that I've been in New York and California, so I know kind of some of the extremes of the American whatever. I don't know what it is. I like hip hop, and I like metal, and I like bluegrass. I like breaking down boundaries. I've heard this a lot recently. Are you an astrology person?
Yes.
Of course. So I'm a Gemini, and I've heard. Yeah. And I've heard that a lot recently. Most of the astrology girls, when I say I'm a Gemini, they're like, oh, that explains so much,
Well, actually, in astrology, you're my polar opposite. I'm Sagittarius. And so you and I, while we're opposite, but we're both dual signs, and we have a lot to learn from each other. Like, you bring stuff to the table that I need to learn, and vice versa.
Interesting. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, I think you'll probably have those nipples that are like a little see-through because of the red hair. Like, it makes this.
We're not answering that question.
I am me. I had to do it. Now, as far as why I play the identity politics game, because if you're going to come in swinging, if liberals are going to come in swinging on, but you don't understand, I'm going to, okay, well, don't white-splain to me, liberal devil. You know what I mean? Like, how dare you speak down to me? But it's finally wonderful. They've been showing more of their true colors when Tim Scott, I love that. Did you see that last week?
No.
Okay. He's Jimmy Kimmel as an example. I mean, a bunch of people were calling him an Uncle Tom, but Jimmy
Kimmel. Yes. I did see that. I'm sorry. I've been trying not to scroll, but I did see that what they did to the black senator. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And Jimmy Kimmel was making fun of him because he was the only black Republican senator. Do you know how many Democrat senators there are? 2. But also,
it's sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No,
it's just terrifying to me. And I've seen that so much over the past 12 months, 16, 18 months, the white splaining to whatever group is supposedly oppressed or whatever, like this white person screaming at a black Trump supporter, like how oppressed they are. And I'm just like, how fucking racist can you be? Like, so black people or minority groups cannot think for them fucking selves? Like, and I know that maybe they're not representative of the majority of, because I want to be real careful, maybe they're not the majority of liberals or Democrats, but they're the fucking loudest, and they're all over the media and all over social media. So it's I'm sorry. And it's offensive. And I don't see anyone speaking out against it that is liberal or that identifies as liberal.
Right. And you're absolutely right. It is not the majority. But here's the thing about current day liberalism that's the problem. Right now, there are people even people I follow, conservatives who I follow, who I do not agree with. I'm sorry, I don't believe there's a motherfucking chip in the vaccine. Sorry, guys. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, but also, I won't unfollow them, but whatever. And we all have our different strengths and whatever. It's complicated. There's nothing built into current day conservatism that makes me need to bend to the will of the most extreme. But there is something in current day liberalism that has to bend to the will of the most extreme, because it's all based on victimhood. Camille Paglia tells a beautiful story. And she was a first wave feminist, second wave feminist back in, like, she had just come out of the 50s. She tells a story. She had just come out of the 50s, which were super patronizing and just horrible to women, because it was like she went to school, and in college, women had a curfew and men didn't, because we were protecting women from being raped, right? So you had to come home at 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. while the men could go be free. And she wanted to go against that. She became a pretty vocal feminist. And then feminism lost her mind. And one of the ways that feminism lost its mind, she tells a story about being at a conference, I believe in the late 80s, early 90s, where it's a feminism conference. And then there's a break-off group because, well, you don't understand, because I'm a lesbian feminist. Your experience can't be what mine is because I'm a lesbian feminist. And so it breaks off into a smaller group. And then there's certain people in there who are like, yeah, but I'm an obese lesbian feminist, so you don't understand. And so it had to break off into a smaller group. And then you don't understand because I'm a Black obese feminist, lesbian feminist. And so it had to break off. And so there's warring factions because emotion is the problem. Because victim, just like let's go spiritual with it. When I'm looking for to fulfill my fear, that is an insatiable goal. When I'm coming from a place of fear, I'm going to grab anything I can, regardless of the blood that it causes, because I'm filling an empty space. I'm trying to find comfort. And so that will always happen, right? So that's what's going back to that idea. That's what's built into current day liberalism. Even people in the center on the left, the majority of the people who follow me, I think, are somewhere on there. You know what I mean? Or a lot of people on the right. But anyway, a lot of the people I've been getting secretive messages, secretive comments, whatever, saying like, I didn't vote Trump, I hated Trump, but my side's going crazy. Then why do you keep voting for him? Like, why do you keep giving the keys and the money and the power to the people who are gonna kill comedy, killing art, killing free speech, racist as fuck? Okay, why are you doing that? But I don't know, because orange man bad. Wake up, goddammit. Get out of emotion, please, for the love of God. And that's identity politics is the hill I will die on. It is the hill I will die on. When I saw George Floyd and all that stuff happen, and then a bunch of white people, mostly white people, said, white people don't get to have a say right now. White people need to shut up. I was like, I will never let them forget that. I will never let them forget that. Because I'm 45% white. Does that mean I don't get to talk 45% of the time? Asshole.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, you and I could probably have a whole nother conversation about this stuff. There's so much. There was something that you said that triggered something around the fear and the identity politics. I also think there's like this need to there's tribalism, which I think which definitely is feeding into or part of or underneath. There's this lack of, if I don't have a collective or a tribe that I can identify with, then who am I? Which is, I think, really, and then there's also this need to blame, like to always, and I get it. There's a lot of trauma-informed coaches that I'm going to probably piss off, but I don't care. I'd rather piss off some people or maybe make you think critically about this. But because like in the trauma-informed space, so we can just be clear. And if you didn't listen to my first season, in the trauma-informed space, what we're always doing is we're digging into where the trauma came from, right? So how we interpreted or made meaning of our world as young children, as young people who didn't necessarily have a lot of or full rational brain development yet, right? And so your sensory, all of your brain is really survival and emotional based, right? You're very egocentric. You don't really have the ability to separate yourself from whoever is creating the trauma. Anyway, so how we interpret our world, how we make meaning of our world, there's these events, right, that do create issues in our lives. We have to look at that stuff in order to heal. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into the space years ago and why I started Wholehuman and Wholehuman Radio. But and I'm coming full circle with this. For some reason, the trauma-informed space has gone all the way from don't ever look at what happened to you to your lived experience is the only thing that's real. And my whole thing is like, yeah, someone else maybe inflicted the trauma on me. Let's just say, because this ties into identity politics because of a lot of the narrative that's going on around like the black oppression, the white people, the white privilege, the white people oppressing people. And it's like, I need to be able to see all these white people as the reason why I am where I'm at. And that's not the only level of truth. It's important to acknowledge if someone has hurt you. It's important to acknowledge if there's been some trauma. But these white liberals, they've taken it to that's the end all be all. There's no personal responsibility, I guess, is where I'm trying to get at. And there's no ability to sort of helpfully detach and see like, okay, I have to process through my own stuff, but I can't hold every single person accountable around me or expect to change. I mean, first of all, you're powerless. You can't change people. Is any of this making sense? Sorry, I feel like I've gone on a bit of a tangent.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely get it.
And so yeah, there's this that we want to blame everybody else for our woes and for why our life's not working out and for why we don't have what we don't have. But the truth of the matter is there's a lot of reasons why we don't have what we want, you know, in life. There could be some of it. Some of it could be like you didn't get a leg up like some other person did. Some of it could just be like that's not your dharma or your karma in this lifetime. Some of it could be, are you doing the work that you need to be doing? Like, and I'm not going to stop doing the work that I need to be doing just because you know, Jane Doe has maybe an easier life than me. Like there's a really disempowered narrative, I guess is the best way to say it, that's like permeated this sort of mainstream narrative. And I'm like, if we keep feeding people a disempowered narrative, of course they're going to stay disempowered. Right. Of course. If we keep telling you you're a victim, you're going to stay a victim.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know if that added to what you said or not.
It does, yeah.
Sorry, one last thing. And I think that's what I did want to ask you is when you touched on the feminism, it's like this is the issue. And maybe you agree with this. I don't know how old you are, but I feel like there's these pendulum swings that are really dangerous. We go from one extreme to another. And do you feel like we can ever get to a point where there's some balance, like where the feminine is balanced out by the masculine, or some people just incapable, I guess?
I don't know. I have this weird intuition that as far as evolution goes, we're always going to keep doing this in a way. And people like me, and this is the thing maybe to some of the, conservatives who follow me, where I don't think everything would be wonderful if everybody was conservative.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't. But people like me, and it sounds like people like you, we help the pendulum swing back a little bit. But there's never, I don't think, because I think we're just a weird kind of animal, where I think we're kind of built this way, to always kind of be in flux. Now it's gotten better. A lot less rape, everybody. I just have to let everybody know, because a lot of people don't like to do their own research. Since 1991, crime has dropped literally upwards of 70%. So we're getting better, okay? Except in certain parts of the world. South Africa, you are 4 more times likely to be raped than America. So, but we're getting better. The pendulum is swinging. And I kind of feel like maybe it'll always be like this. I don't know.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think we've evolved in a lot of ways, in some ways, in other ways, I think we still have a long, long way to go. And I don't believe, I always am looking at like the beliefs that filter my world. Like what beliefs do I have that kind of are how I filter my world? And I'm not an idealist. I don't believe in utopia. I basically believe that people are inherently good, but I also believe that some people are just shitty assholes, and there's, I believe a little bit more in individualism. I think I don't think that it should be pure individualism at all. I think we need collectivism. I'm like you. I think we need liberalism and conservatism. But when you've got one side that kind of runs all the institutions, the universities, the media and the narrative and the big tech companies and the big corporations, you've got a problem. Basically, things are a little bit out of whack right now, is what it feels like. Right. And do I think the world's coming to an end? No. I think there's probably more conversations like what you and I are having than what I even know about, but they're just not, we just don't get to see them, which is why I wanted to have you on to have more of this conversation, or to, to invite you into this space to have this kind of conversation that I think is hard for people to have in this space. I think it is scary to have when you're, it's funny because I meet and see more spiritual people who do think like you and I. But for the most part, it sounds like people are kind of towing a line, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people and get secret messages from people who have been following me for years, who even at certain points have unfollowed me or not wanted to, don't like the politics stuff. I'll listen to his music, but I don't want to, who will send me messages like, I think you were right. You know what I mean? And it's heartening, but it's also a little annoying. I'll say that it's a little annoying because, okay, I knew what I was getting into, right? It took me a while to like be ready to come out. Like, I mean, I was never like, quiet about stuff, you know what I mean? But to be like overt about the fact that no, it's called Conservatish, you know what I mean? Mostly because it's more catchy than the Peter Feliciano show. But I was overt about it. But like, I don't want to do it either. I don't want to be open about it either. Oh, I can't say that, Pete. I can't say what you say. I can't say that I don't agree 100% with the narrative because I might blah, blah, blah. I have literally been deplatformed from multiple places, and not because of actually things that I've said, but because of the opinions that I hold. TikTok is a perfect example. On TikTok and on Instagram as well, people who disagree with me will report my posts. On TikTok specifically, I had 2 or 3 posts reported for nudity and sexual activity. What? It's clipped from a podcast, son. But because liberals, all coming from a place of bad person said bad thing, people somewhere are having a feeling, let's all change everybody's behavior and speech. They report it, and tech, I don't think as malevolent. I think it's more bureaucracy is already built to just cancel, kill, blah, 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 and not have any customer service face to fix that. And so I've been to the platform multiple times.
How do you think conservatism has changed in the last 10, 15, 20 years? And how would you define that? What is how do you see it now as compared to, say 20 years ago in the 80s or whatever? I don't know, what year are we in? 2021, whatever.
Well, it was before your time, young spring chicken. So I kind of like to call it non-liberal. It's a big umbrella. I used to make this joke, like, I'll define Trump supporter for you. I didn't vote for the other guy, or I didn't like the other guy. That we used to have this thing before I was even able to vote. We had this thing called the lesser of two evils. And you weighed out all the different options and all the things that are important or not important. And you go, even if I don't like this person, like we were talking about earlier, I don't like Trump as a human being. I don't want to hang out with the dude very much. He'll be, actually, to tell you the truth, he'd kind of be fun for me. But at the same time, back in a couple of years ago, I was like, no, I don't like him as a person. He's a little slimy, but he did listen to what I'm saying. If you actually, liberals, I love you to death, but if you actually care about Black people, what's more important? Saying that Black lives matter, or giving them a shit ton of money and jobs and getting them out of prison? Like, what's more important? You know what I'm saying? Like the First Step Act, huge deal. Lowest unemployment in history, huge deal. Like, I mean, what's more important?
The universities. He also, something he extended the funding for
HBCUs, historically, but
So there was something else I wanted to ask you that was interesting. Yeah, it's funny because I always got a little bit, and I'm going to do better about this in the future, but people, you can always hear it and they're like, those Trumpers, like they think that everyone who voted for Trump looks, acts, exactly the same. And I'm just like, that's such a limited, shallow way of looking at humans and how people are voting. And I would be guilty of that if I thought everyone who voted for Biden or Hillary was exactly or if they all looked like Antifa, right? But like, that's the problem, is like everyone thinks that all Trump supporters look like the dude with the Confederate flag and the big truck trying to run people off the road. And I'm like, do you know how many smart, intelligent people I know who voted for Trump because, he was more aligned with their values? Anyway, and I was one of them. I did not vote for him in the first time in 2016. I refused to vote for him or for Hillary. I didn't know enough about Trump, and I sure as hell wasn't going to vote for Hillary. But and after he'd done some stuff for 4 years, I voted for him in 2020. Anyway, whatever. It's like, if you're going to vote on principle, there's no one to vote. If you're going to vote on like, who's the like perfectly clean guy, there's no one to vote for. And as far as I'm concerned, and I've always said this, I would rather have my shit show up in front for everyone to see than be hidden in the shadows somewhere.
Anyway. So you do like Geminis. No, that's exactly my experience as well. And as far as the definition of conservative, I don't know any. I know maybe one out of tons of people that I talk to about politics and blah, 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 and culture and blah, 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 that didn't vote for him in that voted for him in 2016 and didn't vote for him in 2020. I don't know any, but I know the majority of the people that I know who voted for Trump in 2020 didn't vote for him in 2016.
Yeah.
Right? The majority, right? And when I saw a bunch of people last year, white people don't get to have a say, that's when I was like, okay, my show for the next couple months is going to be anti that. And so I just threw every Black Trump supporter, every Black person who loves cops, every trans Trump, every gay, I was just like, no, what about them? What about them? What about them? Do they have to shut up? You myopic. This is the last thing I'll say to that. I don't know if I said it earlier. I don't think so, but I'm just so magnanimous. I can't stop myself. But there's a point where I think you said a lot of these white women, these white liberal women, they just don't know enough Black people. They don't know enough Trump supporters.
Yeah.
They live in their bubble, and there is maybe privilege that they feel guilty for, but they don't understand how complicated and beautiful and wonderful and horrendous and tragic and comedic and complicated and slimy and weird that humans are. Right. They think Black equals good. And the thing that changes that,
or Black equals oppressed.
Or Black equals oppressed. The thing that changes that is knowing more motherfucking Black people. Mm-hmm. The thing that changes that is knowing more gays. Milk said it perfectly. You remember that movie Milk and Harvey Milk when he was talking about
I'm not a movie buff. Yeah, go ahead.
But it technically was based on a real story. But Harvey Milk was the first gay Maine politician. Anyway, it's a great movie, even though I don't like Sean Penn's politics. But anyway, and one of the things he said is, if you want people to be nicer, essentially, or not hate gay people, more people have to come out of the closet. Because if they know, oh, I know one of them. It's my grocer. It's my sister. It's my cousin. It's my, whatever, my hairdresser. It's my whatever, my antiquer. If I know one of them, it suddenly changes and it complicates and it nuances and it flowers open into this thing of, even if I don't agree with your lifestyle, you can still be like, all right, maybe they shouldn't be all dead, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So liberals, you need to kind of know more fucking Black people. You do. You need to, and not just, well, but I follow 3 Black people on Instagram. Not good enough. You need to know more. Okay.
And probably know more conservatives that are Black or Hispanic or LGBT. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't honestly know any conservatives, and I follow a lot of them, who hate gays.
I know.
Sorry, it's just not a thing. And just and the majority of them that I follow, all of them they don't want trans people to not get their shit. They really are, hey, do your thing. Whatever. I'll call you whatever you want, but don't tell me I have to call you that.
Right.
Don't cut off my son's pee-pee. Like, that's pretty
right.
simple. You know what I mean? That's all it is. Anyhow.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think there's anything I can add to that. That would be super. There's so much. When you're talking, I'm listening so intently. This is one of my issues with interviews. I'm like, then I forget what I was going to ask you. Is your music political? Just out of curiosity, listen to one.
No, not really.
It was about social media. It was something. It was like a social media song. Like you were ripping on, like it was like a Facebook likes or.
The Me song. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of political, but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I make fun of. I think the first verse I make fun of, a girl taking pictures, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's more cultural. It's more cultural.
Right, and along with that, on the last verse, I make fun of myself. Because that's ultimately what it is. The reason why I think I'm specifically good at what I do, part of the reason, besides I'm just amazing, is that I understand myself and I dig into myself, and it has been that way for a long, long time. And so because I understand myself, I can understand people better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's beautiful the way you said it. And I think the more you dig into yourself and the more you understand yourself, also the more compassion and empathy and understanding you have for all this weirdness that's going on around you. And the less you see people through these very narrow, one-dimensional, shallow lenses. There was something you were talking about, just like exposure, being around people. And that's one of the things that I kind of harp on all the time is, that's one of the reasons why I have such, I've had such a beautifully diverse upbringing. And then where I live in Houston, Texas, it's so diverse. And so that's why I was like, one of those things I've never been taught to think about is identity or culture or whatever. But you can't beat out of people. Like you can't beat people into being more loving or more compassionate or more open or less racist or whatever. Like you're not going to force people. You can't get inside of people's heads and get them to think the way you want them to think and feel. Like it's just the most, but I guess they don't care about that. I guess it's just more about compliance. And punishing people who don't comply is really what it seems like, basically. I mean,
and what it used to be was the other way. What it used to be was, the PMRC in the 80s and, them wanting to get rid of Ice-T because he made a song called Cop Killer, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They used to, the Christian conservatives used to be anti-free speech. The Christian conservatives used to be the video games are killing kids, you know what I mean? But now literally the liberals are saying the video games are killing kids. So like, it's a different hat, same fear, different hat. And so I think our main fight is against fear, really. And that's an individual, that's a personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay. I love this conversation. So after I ask you these we're going to do like kind of like a lightning round of 4 sort of fun questions, maybe just 3. We'll see how long it takes you to answer them. I'll want you to tell everyone how to get a hold of you, where to find you, and all those good things. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you. I've had a blast. You're awesome.
So just so people can kind of know a little bit more about you, or maybe some fun stuff about you, what's the coolest thing you've ever manifested?
Now, do you mean I had to think
something that really cool that happened in your life that when you look back, you're like, wow, that's really freaking cool. And I kind of created that. Like I co-created that happened because of my own.
Did I ever think about it or affirm it beforehand? I'm wanting to know.
No, this is not woo-woo shit. Let's just say coolest thing you've ever co-created, created, made happen in your life. Like the coolest thing that's happened.
It's got to be either moving to, I'll tell you 3, because I'm never good with not talking. Okay. Moving to New York was one of them, across the country, away from, my nest that I had. And even in spite of the pandemic and everything being shut down, I would have absolutely not changed it. It's been a wonderful thing. Along with that, my first album, the more music I make, the less precious it is, and the less, I have to make it perfect. But that was a lot of fun, and really, important. And then third was leaving, and there's more to this conversation, but leaving a pretty kind of cultish, emotionally abusive spiritual group that I used to be a part of.
It was a very insular, very small, very elitist, and literally thought that I would drink again if I left it. Literally thought I would be by myself. And leaving that spiritual group was actually one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And,
Okay.
it grew my own legs and my own balls. So
Yeah. That's kind of how you know when you're really on the road to healing too, is when you're able to disconnect from those kinds of toxic situations too. That's huge for you. So if you could choose one superpower to have in this lifetime, what would it be?
flight.
What?
Flight.
Flight.
Mhm.
Flight. Really? Okay.
Because I'm already incredibly strong and smart. So I can
You don't
already
really
read,
need a lot.
I can
Yeah.
already read girls' minds. So
Positive or negative more conducive to growth? So the positive things that happen, like when do you feel like the most positive?
Positive.
Really?
Positive. Here's what. Now, well, do you mean? Well, that's a kind of a complicated question. Do you mean negative experiences? Do you mean negative reinforcement? What do you mean?
I mean, it could be either. Take it however you want to. Like, so some people feel like that the bad experiences in life can really catapult us if we want them to into our own personal evolution and growth and deep diving and self-awareness and stuff. But I also feel like there's a ton of growth to be had in the positive things that happen. Like, so so it's a kind of an interesting conversation to have. Like, is there one where you've had more growth? Is it from the positive reinforcement or positive things that have happened to you or the positive experiences? Or do you feel like the negative experiences and negative things have created more growth for you in your life?
Here's what I think. I think we need a little of both at different times in our life. And I think when, or at least from my experience, when I've told myself and others in my spiritual walk, this is what I need, sometimes it's not. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'm setting up a boundary because, no, you need to talk to me nice. When in reality, I need strict boundaries. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I could use somebody who is harder on me. When in actuality, I'm being way too fucking hard on myself. So I think it's a little bit of both. For the last years, for sure, I've needed more kind of feminine love. You know, I've needed more kind of not maternal, but like I've listened to like earlier in my life, I needed someone to like, you know, kind of set up the boundaries where it's like, okay, now brush your teeth. Now now do this. No, don't text that. No, you know, and have this boundary. But for the last, I would say probably 10, 15 years, it's been, Pete, be nicer to yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, open.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. I know. I think what you're saying is like there's like the whole, especially in the personal development, self-help space, there's a whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kill your inner bitch. I hear Joe Rogan say that all the time. Like, you got to kill your inner bitch. And I'm like, Joe, sometimes there is a place for like being, especially if you're a type A person, which you probably are like me. Like, I'm very type A. I'm very disciplined. I can get shit done. And I was so hard on myself for the first 25, maybe 30 years of my life. And I'm really in this beautiful period where I'm really discovering more and more self-compassion and just self-patience. And like, I'm happy. Like, and anyway. So I think that's beautiful that as a man, that you can kind of see that and acknowledge that too.
Yeah. And some people use either one. Either one can get
interchangeably. Yeah.
Either one can be like, no, you're not allowed to set boundaries with me because I'm already hard enough on myself. And then some people can use the strictness, can absolutely obviously get out of whack. I kind of feel, and this is going to get real fucking hippie for a quick second. I kind of feel like the idea of spirit guides, for me, I have two. One's more masculine, one's more feminine.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Peter. I want you to tell everyone how they can find you, where they can get a hold of you, where they can hear your stuff, where they can see your podcast.
Sure. So my podcast is called Conservatish. It's available iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. It's usually weekly. For the last month, I've just been kind of taking a break a little bit. Not from the show. I've still put out a couple of episodes, but I've got more music on the way and stuff. So you can find my music. I have a self-titled album with this with this picture on it as the main thing. That came out in September of 2019. I also am putting out a bunch of new music, both on my YouTube, my Spotify, my iTunes, and then I'm also coming out with a cover song next week. I'm doing Manic Monday. It's fun. But like fast and like, yeah. It's like if you took Manic Monday, put it in a blender with punk music and bubblegum and neon. That's what it would be like.
Okay, I can't wait to hear this.
Thank you. So it's going to be out. And then also you can support my podcast and my music at patreon.com/Conservatish. Find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano or at Conservatish, because I think Instagram is going to cut me off soon. So there you go.
Yeah. You're so brave for moving across the country during a pandemic to like pursue art. I just think that's really, or even music are you still shut down up there?
A little bit. It's opening.
It's opening up. Okay. You need to come to Texas. It is so open. It's been so open here.
You know how many people, because so many different people who are from Texas or Vegas or whatever, who are like, you have to find yourself a hillbilly girl. I'm like, well, I'm open to it. Shit. All these other girls are like, check out my mom jeans and my, and my influencer hat. I'm like, whatever, just fucking. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, it's okay. Thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to stop recording. Let me see.
Bye, everybody.